Welcome to MMT Chats. This episode is brought to you by ISCAR with new ideas for machining intelligently. Hey, MMT followers. I'm Christina Fuges, Editorial Director with MoldMaking Technology, and my guest on today's MMT Chat is Rick Finney, owner of MR Mold and Engineering in Brea, California, which is a mold builder specializing in LSR mold making, but also offers plastic injection molds, molding, and other services. I've actually known Rick pretty much since we've launched MoldMaking Technology back in the late 90s, and his company remains to be one of the top LSR mold builders in the country. And actually, they celebrated 35 years this year. So hi, Rick, and congrats.
Thank you.
All right. So the last time I saw you was when I was in California for MD&M West, February 2020, right before COVID hit. And I was able to see the new facility. I actually got a tour there, and you were not quite completely moved in at the time, but there was a lot of space and a very cool vertical storage unit in the center of the production area. So why don't you give us, to start off, an update on the facility as it stands today? Because I know you've made some equipment purchases, you've hired some people, and get into a little bit about why this move into this new facility in 2020.
Well, it was really needed because at the previous facility we were out of electricity and we were out of space, and there was just no room for any growth. We couldn't buy another machine. We couldn't bring in any customers' machines, and also on top of that, the building owner sold the building and they were going to demolish the building. So
well, there you go.
It was a good push that we needed, and got out of there and got into a much better facility, much more room, plenty of power. And when you were here in February, I think maybe we had just finished getting machines into the facility, but maybe they weren't all running probably, and
yes,
there was a mess, and it wasn't until probably last summer when we finally got things settled and everything up and running, and it's a big project to move a facility.
How far is this new facility from where everybody knows of MR Mold prior?
We're only 4 miles away. So
why don't we talk about that? You actually hired 5 people in the past 6 months, and they're all under the age of 30?
Well, we're constantly on the lookout for young people that we can bring in, and one fellow was the son of one of our mold designers who was just kind of floundering in different jobs, and said, maybe manufacturing is what I want to do, and another young man, his older brothers and his father are in manufacturing, and so he finally figured out that maybe manufacturing was a good job. And the other company that we acquired 2 of their employees.
Nice.
And with this COVID crisis, it did not hurt our business at all. In fact, we were very busy through the whole thing, and we're still busy.
That's great.
So we were bringing people in as best we could, or fast as we could, and we had a number of customers that were pulling out all the stops to raise their production to produce product for this crisis. Some of our biggest customer is in the respiratory care business.
All right, so let's talk about the equipment you purchased. So I think from what I understand, you purchased newer equipment to help you handle very large projects, which again is not typical of MR mold traditionally, correct? So I assume this is a new focus for you in regards to being different from liquid silicone rubber molds for medical. So talk about that.
Well, technically these are rubber molds, but these tools are primarily for the defense and aerospace industry. So there was a local tool room that wasn't far from us, and there's kind of a long story to it, but they were struggling, and kind of the opposite way that we were. The COVID crisis was really hurting them, and they did a lot of their business with the commercial aircraft industry. And so when orders from Boeing and Airbus and so on stopped, they had a lot of projects put on hold or canceled.
Right.
And so the owner is a person that I've known for quite a few years, and had contacted me, and we ended up by entering into some discussions, and we thought, well, you know, maybe this is an opportunity that we should take a look at. That's a diversification into different types of tools that we don't presently make. And you know, I've already been introduced to a couple of the customers, and they're ecstatic that we've bought this equipment and that we're going to have this capability. They're trying to come along for the ride, so to speak, and we're hoping to continue to supply them with the tooling that they've been needing. And it's a big diversification for us and a whole different industry.
Yeah.
And,
so what was the equipment that you purchased to be able to take this on?
Well, one of the machines is a bridge mill with 163 inches of travel in one axis and 63 inches of travel in the other axis. So you can literally machine a 4x8 sheet of, well, actually bigger than that. It's you know, you're roughly looking at 5 foot by 13 foot of travel, and you can build some rather large tools like that. The customer that I just visited, they were doing a ton of aerospace work. It was all defense related, though. They were building tools for various different aircraft, fighter aircraft, tankers, cargo aircraft, and so on. And they, you know, when you're working on things like that, you need big tools. So,
exactly.
You know, when you're making a seal for a door for a C-17 that a tank can be deployed out of, it's a rather large seal.
That's crazy.
It's going to be interesting to see how our guys can evolve. And
it sounds to me that's a big difference from what MRs and your team is typically working on. So, you know, what does that mean to the employee? Is there a level of excitement because this is something new? Is there a little bit like if people are tentative, and what's the training? Like how, explain that a little bit.
Honestly, I think the tools are simpler. They're just larger, a little bit of a learning curve, but by and large, the tools are pretty simple.
Okay. It's just on-the-job training as they're working with customers, or is there something more formal to get your team familiar with this diversification and the work that comes with it?
I don't think there's going to be too much on-the-job training. It's going to take a little doing with my designers to explain to them, you know, how these tools are going to operate. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping that this is going to be a nice addition. It's
I think so too. It seems like a whole new path. I think it's fantastic in this day and age, you know, and I love to see all these shops trying new things and moving forward in different directions. So I think that's what the future is. You have to. So speaking of that, I think you're in the process of getting ISO 9001, right? And AS 9001 too. Like, talk about the certification process that you're going through, because you're entering into aerospace defense, correct?
Yes, I mean we've felt like we've operated in compliance all these years with the way we do things and so on, but we just haven't done anything formal. There hasn't been a certification, and there hasn't been an audit. I mean, actually, that's not completely true. We have actually passed audits from different customers of ours, and we just don't have a certification. We've told prospective customers that our intentions are is by June we will be ISO certified, and then once we have tackled that, then we move on to the AS 9000, which is more of a defense and aerospace certification. So we got to do it in steps. Try to do the ISO first and then the AS certification after.
Also heard that you purchased a 3D metal printer?
We have.
Now, can you share what the technology is that you invested in and why?
Well, it's 3D Systems. I forget what the model number is off the top of my head, but it was a used machine. One of the machinery dealers that we deal with had a customer that had bought this 3D printer, and it wasn't suiting their needs. It wasn't solving their problems, and so they were willing to sell it at what seemed like a pretty discounted price.
Nice.
And so we have bought it and we've got it installed. One of the key reasons why I moved forward with it is on our cold runner systems, the water jackets on our cold runner systems, we've been having those 3D printed for the last decade. And so now we can do it in-house.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
We were paying a lot of money for each of those water jackets, and now we can make them ourselves. And so it was something that we had done on our cold runner nozzles that kind of sets them apart from everybody else's. And really the 3D printing is the only way to make them, because it's got kind of a conformal cooling type of a style to it. And so when I had the opportunity, I thought, well, geez, right off the bat, we can keep this thing busy a few days a week just making water jackets. So and just this week, I just got done turning in some quotes for some prototype tooling for one of our medical companies who they were excited that we have this technology. And so I'm hoping to get an order for our first cavities and cores that we can make on it. And we're total rookies with this machine. You know, we're not really sure what we can and can't do. We have a lot to learn.
You're the first person I've spoken to that got a used machine.
Invoice. The company paid $800,000 for this thing, and we got it for a fraction of that. So
that's awesome.
If I have to say that if I didn't have an opportunity to buy a used one, I don't know that I would have bought it, because I don't know that I would spend $800,000 on one piece of equipment. That I mean, we've got close to that investment in our 5-axis mill, but that 5-axis mill that's a bread and butter of our work with these silicone masks that we do. These complex geometries. That 5-axis mill has been a savior. So
that's your workhorse, right?
Yeah, I mean, what used to take 5 and 6 different setups, we now do in 1 or 2. So it's
and whose machine is that?
It's a 5-axis Yazda.
Yeah. Oh, the Yazda. Yes, the Yazda. So now and I would imagine too, like like doing the math. You're right. Outsourcing that work. Plus, you might find out, Rick, that that machine could be used by other people. Like other people might, when they find out that you have that and what you're doing with it, that could be a separate, work coming into you. So I don't know. I guess as we move forward, I'll be curious to see what happens with that.
Well, that thought crossed our mind. I've already had a couple of people comment that there might be other tool rooms in the area that would like to have cores and cavities made with the conformal cooling and so on. And we haven't gone as far as trying to advertise that. We kind of feel like we need to learn how to use the machine before we start trying to sell components off of it. But
I agree.
I'm hoping that this customer that I just quoted some tooling for will agree to proceed with it. I offered them, kind of a shared cost basis. Explain to them, hey, you're kind of our guinea pig on making cores and cavities for the first time, but we think we can be successful, and we think this is going to work well. I was planning on making the cores and cavities at cost, just to just to be able to start practicing with this machine.
Exactly. Is there somebody, so a new technology like that comes in, did you designate a person, a team, like who's using that?
Well, we've got our designers involved in it, because they're going to be needing to do the modeling for the components that are going to get made. And we've got our IT guy is involved in it, because it's a completely different technology. Has nothing to do with EDM or wire EDM or mills or lathes. So all the teachings, all the learnings that the other guys have of the other equipment means nothing with this new device. So you know, you're using a laser to melt powdered metal in little
you're
layers.
Building up.
Yeah, exactly. And so I got the design guys together with our IT guy and said, look, you guys are going to be the guys making the metal, 3D printed metal components. So then the other guys would get involved because there needs to be finished machining done to some parts of the components. So we would need to square up the outside of the insert to fit into a mold base, and we would want to grind the parting line and stuff like that. But we would basically be eliminating the machining of the cavities and cores, and we would be 3D printing, creating it from a bed of powder.
There's so much happening at MR. Like you are just moving forward. I think that's really exciting. Getting your certifications, acquiring the assets of a company, getting into aerospace and defense, getting into 3D printing. I think it's wonderful. So with that in mind, let's wrap this up. You're moving forward. So I guess I need to ask, so how mold building, when you think about the future and what you're doing with MR Mold and the people that you're hiring, what do you see as the mold builder of the future, whether that's 5 years from now or 10 years from now? What do you think MR and actually a physical mold builder is going to look like? What are the skill sets and the qualities that he or she is going to be needing in the future?
You can automate the lathe, the mill, the EDM, perhaps the polishing to some level maybe, but you still got to have somebody to assemble the tools. You still have to have somebody, and you also have to have somebody with the mind to design it.
So the person is still important. Thank you for your time. I think it's a great little promotion for what has happened to me in a year's. I know it's probably been longer than that, but since I've been out there, a little over a year, a lot has happened. So thank you for sharing that. And to everybody out there watching, remember, for everything mold making, visit moldmakingtechnology.com. Stay safe and healthy, and more importantly, stay informed and stay inspired.